I think Mac Jones has taken way too much heat, crap, whatever you want to call it, for this loss. Obviously, the injury is the injury. I thought, say what you want about the picks. That was probably his best game throwing the football as a pro. Is that too crazy to say?
Moments.
Some of those, right?
I go back to the Cleveland game last year, the Jacksonville game last year, but he had, I think it was perfectly emblematic of that game. Sorry to cut you off, but it kind of piggybacks right on your point there. Mac's two best throws, one ended in a turnover, one probably should have. That throw to Aguilar was an absolute missile. Rocket. That was a high-level throw. Nobody's going to talk about that, of course, because Nelson Aguilar then fumbles the ball, 5 seconds later? On the next drive, he delivers a beautiful touch pass to Kendrick Bourne, which Kendrick Bourne then fumbles and ultimately recovered, and Mac throws the final interception, gets hurt on, I don't know if it was the next play or the play after, but shortly thereafter, so nobody's talking about that. No, Mac, I think, showed anybody coming away from this game with the thought that Mac is not an NFL quarterback. You're either...
Keep your comments to yourself, please.
You either didn't really watch, you don't know what you're watching, which if you don't know what you're watching, credit to you for watching the show, because you'll learn, we'll teach you. That's the point of the show. Or you're just trying to get ahead of the curve on hot take. That's not the takeaway from this game, that Mac is not good enough. That's not what the issue was. Those throws you saw in those moments, a guy who's not good enough doesn't make those throws.
Like I said, I thought he controlled the line of scrimmage. He moved the ball. They took some shots. He was 8 for 11 on throws, 25 plus yards down the field. They finally started to open things up. He spread the ball around really well. I thought Jonu Smith got involved. Devontae Parker had his best game here. Kendrick Bourne was more involved. Nelson, right? That was everything you wanted to see. The throw to Parker in the end zone, I'm not, backing up the kid, but I think, Parker might have ran the wrong route there.
That was a breakdown all around. It wasn't a good play call to begin with. Parker ran a bad route. Go watch the offensive line on that play. There's a reason he's throwing off his back foot, right? There's a lot to that.
Right. No, it was an all around, it was a tough loss, right? And it reminded me a lot of that Dallas game because, from last year, because it's one of those games they were in it. It was a winnable game. It was back and forth. It was extremely competitive, very good football to watch, and they just were one or two plays away. But just the Mac Jones, you guys, the fans they baffle me, because it's the first people last year to back the guy after winning 10 games as a rookie with all new faces on the offensive line, not even offensive line. Then this year he's got two new quarterback coaches, a de facto offensive coordinator,
a new offensive
brand
line.
new offensive line, and it's all of a sudden he's not the future.
Nobody's a fit for.
Tank for CJ Stroud. Guys are it's mind-boggling. It's frustrating. It's pathetic, to be honest.
This is what happens with these teams. It's not like the Jets have never had a quarterback, or the Browns have never had a quarterback because they constantly draft the wrong guy. That's some of it. That's certainly some of it. But some of it also is they put those quarterbacks in bad situations. They don't correctly develop those guys. On the flip side, you see a ton of players in the league now that maybe weren't the perfect prospects coming out, had some nice traits, but weren't the perfect prospects coming out, but went into an environment that was a perfect setup and have become elite quarterbacks. I would argue the Patriots just faced a guy like that in Lamar Jackson. And people have watched this show for a long time, going back to when I worked at CLNS. No, I wasn't a big Lamar Jackson fan back in the day. He's progressed so much, especially as a thrower. And a lot of that is the team has put him in a spot to succeed. He didn't have to worry about anything but himself. He was able to work on himself. He put in a ton of work. Credit to him. This isn't to take away from him. Credit to him. And now if he keeps up what he's doing this year through 3 games, he's going to win his second MVP. That was an MVP performance on Sunday. With Mac Jones, and Ryan, you touched on some of this. Promising first year. Promising for looked good. And things happen. They lost Josh McDaniels. That happens. But they don't they don't bring in a real new offensive coordinator. They have a defensive coach who's never done this before. It's not like it's a first-year offensive coordinator who was a quarterback's coach or was a tight ends coach or was this or was that. They bring in a first-year offensive coordinator who's his first year in decades on that side of the ball, changes the system, puts in a system that Mac and the majority of his teammates are not fits for, completely rearranges the offensive line to the point where it's patchwork, and that showed up on Sunday, especially at the tackle spot. And then, on top of that, they refused to put his favorite and arguably best receiver on the field.
For the last 3 weeks
People are asking what happened to Mac. I would flip that question and say, well, what did you think was going to happen, when you lay it all out like that? What did you expect? Frankly, it may be going better than it really should, the way they have this whole thing set up. So, can Mac be better? Yes. But
like this comment, it's
yeah, okay. Mac has 6 turnovers. Why? He was not a turnover guy last year. This kind of regression, this would be.
He's never has been. That's the problem with this hate is it's so unlike him. This goes back to his college days. He's never been the athletic guy. He's never been a guy that's going to wow you with his arm. He wins at the line of scrimmage, doesn't turn the ball over, and typically outsmarts his opponent to be able to, be an efficient quarterback.
Right.
We've seen none of that this year. Out of that just automatically happens. No, that doesn't.
If Mac if Mac looked like this last year, I would agree and say, hey, he's probably not an NFL quarterback. We saw what Mac was last year, and having watched him at Alabama, what he was last year is closer to the guy he actually is. This is a product of the environment. Mac has 5 interceptions. Well, he's throwing a lot. He's throwing so many more high-risk throws this year. I don't think that's a Mac thing. I don't think he came out and decided, I'm just going to chance things all the time. That would be such a departure from the guy he's been his whole career. I think the coaching staff in the new scheme is dictating him making these decisions. And that's what's concerning. I actually think he's doing what the coaching staff wants him to do, as I think he did last year. And that's the problem. I think it's an assignment thing. I don't think it's a Mac is making the wrong read things.
You can't tell me.
Sorry, one more. I see this on. Well, he can't get past his first read. He's not making reads. The reads are dictated by the play design, right? So he might be he is looking around. It's not like he's locking in on receivers. To me, it's the reads are bad, and that goes back to the coaching staff and the design. Phil Perry had a great point about this yesterday. That it's a product. He's a product of his environment right now. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I don't even know what I was going to say, but it's frustrating because and I understand it's part of the quarterback, right? You're going to be you're elite if your team's winning. You're not good if they're not, right? It's just that's what fans look at. You got to look outside the box score. Right? He had some bad picks, absolutely. Yeah. But no one likes to look into the whole operation of when this started, right? We tried to be a little optimistic. This was completely expected with how this went. Not saying he got hurt and stuff like that. Just I'm saying from his stat line and how the team is, this was completely expected. They're lucky they scored 26 points the other night. Their margin for error is so small as a team because they're just everything has to go perfect. I've said it for 3 weeks now. The Buffalo Bills margin for error is this big. They can have look at week 1. They turned the ball over 4 times.
They use most of it. Yeah, and they use most
38 to 13 or something, whatever the score was, right? This team has such a small margin for error, and obviously the microscope is going to be on the quarterback. But you need to look back really since March. This has been a disaster, and everyone talks about how important that second year is for the quarterback, arguably more important than that first year. He was in the best situation as a rookie quarterback, right? Which is why he was able to jumpstart that development and be able to, go to the Pro Bowl, win 10 games, take the team to the playoffs. Now you can make an argument that he's in the worst situation of those 5 quarterbacks, maybe even worse than Justin Fields, right? It's up there. It's debatable.
He's still not on the Jets. I'd say second worst, though. Fields, first-year coach, they seem to be making, look, they're not throwing the ball a ton. They're kind of being patient with them. It's not great, but it's understanding what your young quarterback needs.
I would argue
the Bears are at least doing that. For Fields?
I feel bad for the kid.
For Fields or Mac?
Mac, I do. Genuinely, both of them. It's a shame for what you built last year. And I understand you lost your offensive coordinator who's done a fantastic job developing quarterbacks. He has 4 guys right now starting in the league. But like I said, I think we were more on the optimistic side, just trying to be positive for listeners, for everything out there. But if you really look deep down inside, you should have saw this coming in March. This has been a disaster for this kid. And it's not his fault.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I don't want to say like it's entirely not his fault. Could he be better? Yes, he made some bad reads, but I think you can't just yell 5 picks and shut the door. You need to look at the context of those. You have receivers running wrong routes, not knowing the routes. You have receivers not fighting back for the football. He's throwing off his back foot because he's not getting pass protection. Like, Mac hasn't played great, but to say, oh, well, if they had an actual quarterback and not Mac, they'd like, these problems go well beyond Mac Jones at this point. They go well beyond Mac Jones. He's in a rough spot. It's just they need to get it all cleaned up. And some of it I think they can fix relatively quickly, right? Putting Kendrick Bourne back on the field is a snap of the fingers decision. Some of it, the offensive line, the playbook is going to take longer to iron out. The hope is that you get it all figured out before some of this stuff becomes permanent, before he becomes really sped up, before the injuries start to catch up and have an impact on his play. That's when you start to get on, maybe whether he was the guy or not at this point, maybe he's not, maybe it's too late. You don't want to get to that point. And it feels like they are just sprinting towards that point right now. Ryan, we've seen it. I mean, football fans have seen this all the time. There's good quarterbacks, like talented quarterbacks, that get drafted into bad situations and end up being busts, even though they were the right pick and they have tremendous talent. There's good quarterbacks that go to bad situations and end up washing out. We've seen it happen. Mac throwing 3 picks against the Ravens is not a be-all, end-all. He's a bad quarterback. You need to look at the bigger picture.
It's crazy, like how quickly you forget about what they built last year and how excited everyone was. Like, let's get this kid some talent, some structure, organizationally. Like, I don't see anybody, and I don't mean to call anybody out here, but I think the decision, like, everyone's so quick to blame the quarterback. I get it; they're players; they play the game. But your head coach is, the whole thing from the start has been a head scratcher, right? From what you built offensively, defensively they're fine. I don't think there's really much issue there. You knew they were going to be figure it out and figure out to be.
They missed Kyle Duggar badly on Saturday. But on Sunday. I don't know if that's the difference of them winning the game or not, but like, they missed him badly.
It's unfortunate. I feel, like I said before, I feel for the kid because he does all the right things. He's a smart player, somebody that I think can be good in this league, and you can certainly win with. But the team and the structure around him offensively is just not good enough, and it's a shame. It really is. And you just lost him for probably 8 weeks, so you can kiss this season goodbye if he's not back. I know the schedule gets a lot easier after Green Bay, but it's hard to rattle off wins on a weekly basis. The Lions look much better. We'll see what the Jets look like with Zach Wilson. Yeah. Well, Indy had a big win, right? Like, it's just, I don't know. But like, to say let's tank for Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, you're a moron. Sorry, you're a moron.